On September 15th, the House of Representatives passed the Preventing a Patronage System Act. It's meant to shield federal workers from the return of Schedule F. Richard Loeb is Senior Policy Counsel at the American Federation of Government Employees. The union represents more than 700,000 federal workers. Richard, welcome to the program.
Thank you, Mimi. It's a pleasure to be here.
Remind us what Schedule F is.
Schedule F was an executive order issued by former President Trump in October of 2020, which attempted to place a large number of career federal employees on an as-will employment basis, meaning they could be dismissed for any reason or no reason at all at the behest of their appointing authority, so their supervisor within an agency or perhaps higher up in the chain of command. The purpose of Schedule F, many people believe, was to politicize the civil service, and certainly that was an aspect of it. But it also would allow an administration to hire people at will. And the estimates of the number of people who would be affected by this Schedule F order varied, but it was at least tens of thousands, and we calculated at the American Federation of Government Employees, AFGE, that it could have been hundreds of thousands of people because of the definitions used in the executive order. But the executive order went beyond that. I think what many people missed in the order, because it was buried sort of deep inside, was that it also placed many existing types of federal positions on a potential at-will employment status. For instance, all attorneys in the federal government, administrative law judges would be placed on an at-will basis, which obviously affects the independence and integrity of at least the executive part of the judiciary. So.
Well, that's what I wanted to ask you is what's the ultimate impact here to the operations of the federal government and the ability of the government to deliver services to the American people?
Well, I think the good news, of course, is that President Biden rescinded the executive order that specified or created Schedule F. But the impact is that you would be placing political and potentially patronage-type operations much further down into the food chain, if you will, of federal employment. And people could simply be removed for no reason at all. They disagree with the administration. Perhaps they even agreed with the administration, but their supervisor just didn't like them. Maybe it was a personality dispute. Maybe they wanted to make room for somebody else they liked. It would have been the creation of an entire patronage system. Now, some people have said, oh, well, you can't have patronage, that far down at the bureaucracy. But I've been calling it patronage maybe perhaps with both a large P and a small p. You'd have a system of favoritism, hiring friends, possibly even relatives. Perhaps they'd have to be a little bit distant under existing ethics laws, but it would create a system where everyone would essentially be on pins and needles if they ran afoul of anyone in their chain of command.
Now, Richard, explain the difference between the accepted service and the competitive service.
Well, that's a great question, Mimi. The competitive service is the traditional civil service that was created as a result of the Pendleton Act in the late 19th century. And the Pendleton Act, of course, was enacted after President Garfield was assassinated by a disappointed job seeker. And the idea was that we would hire people based upon their actual merit. We created what many people call the meritocracy, a merit-based hiring system. And that's the concept of the competitive service. Competitive service positions enjoy certain due process protections after successfully completing a certain amount of service. The accepted service, and I'm almost quoting from the statute, is everything else. If you're not in the definition of the accepted service is that it's not in the competitive service. And there is no accepted service. There's literally hundreds, perhaps even thousands of accepted services. Positions are in the accepted service because they have either been placed in it by a statute or by a presidential order removing them from the competitive service.
So, Richard, what would this legislation do? It's called the Preventing a Patronage System Act.
Well, the concept of the law is that the existing accepted appointing authorities that are in statute as of just prior to the enactment of or the issuance of Schedule F would be frozen. And I believe that's about 6 different appointing authorities. It does not prohibit, however, Congress from establishing more accepted appointing authorities. And I'd be remiss if I did not point out that one of the concerns we have at AFG is, while we certainly appreciate the fact that we have supporters in Congress who want to stop conversions of competitive service positions to the accepted service, there are many mini Schedule Fs that have developed through congressional action, where agencies are created, or parts of agencies are created, or positions are created that are exempt from all civil service laws. And the amount of accepted service hiring authorities that have been created and are actually used for appointment seem to be growing quite rapidly.
You know, we both know the tremendous work that government employees do on a daily basis, but when people say they want to, quote, take on the bureaucracy and drain the swamp, what does that mean to you?
I think it's a political slogan that's supposed to, get people's dander up in some way or another, to deal with their frustrations about life in general. But I don't know that it's meaningful, other than just that, to go to some sort of visceral emotional reaction that people are going through when, in uncertain times, both in terms of economics, the changing world, the pandemic, of course. So I think that's what it's really about.
Well, the legislation has passed the House. What's the likelihood it will pass the Senate?
I don't engage in political predictions on these things. Certainly, we're hopeful that the Senate will seriously consider it.
And very quickly, Richard, any other legislation that you're watching that could impact federal workers?
Well, we're always looking out for things like pay raises and, of course, benefit changes. But I want to emphasize again that if Congress is serious about protecting the competitive service, they will do what they can to actually make sure that positions are placed in the competitive service and not continue to allow the proliferation of accepted appointing authorities, as has been the case for the past several years.
All right, Richard, thanks so much for being on the program.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the video, give it a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel so you don't miss out on any future Government Matters interviews.